Welcome back to yet another episode of your Re-Educated podcast. We had technical issues on technical issues, but we are here. I am really excited for today's conversation. We are speaking with Miro Komarek. He is the general manager of the Artisan Kitchen and Urban Garden and Drei Stuben, two esteemed culinary establishments located in Zurich, Switzerland. With a deep passion for gastronomy and sustainable practices, our guest blends traditional culinary techniques with modern innovations to create unique dining experiences. I met him at the Kaleido conference when he was giving a workshop on breathwork, and I thought he would be so fascinating to have on for this season, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. How are you doing?
Gautam, thank you very much for this invitation. So much pleasure and honor to be part of Re-Educated podcast. And thank you also for your question at the beginning. I feel very well and very excited to be here.
Yeah, and I wanted to start the conversation. You were telling me a little bit about this story of what happened over the weekend, and I think sometimes situating these conversations into a context, sometimes we can jump straight into the abstract, and I think what ends up happening is it takes the humanness out of the conversation. And you had a very real human experience this weekend, and I want to first thank you for feeling comfortable enough to share it. But I think it would be an amazing place to start.
Oh, thank you very much, Gautam, for this question. It was really endeavor. Saturday morning on my way to work, I was actually reflecting on, oh, that'll be amazing to have a little more time right now to rest and to relax. And yeah, suddenly it was possible. So I was thinking next time when I will be manifesting more time or spaciousness, I will try to do it in a different way than got car accident, or better said, to be hit by car from back. And it was actually a really blissful situation. And I was really lucky. Sometimes what is happening, or in my perception or in my view, that we are getting really what we need the most. And for me, it was really slowing down. So on my way to work, I got hit by car. Nothing serious happened. And yeah, so I feel my intention or my desire to slow down happened or become very tangible.
Hmm. And we were talking earlier about how you ended up having to be taken to the hospital, and it forced you into that space of reflection and thinking. What were some of the things that you
Mm.
were reflecting on?
Yeah, I mean, in the situations you really reflect on what truly matter in the life. And I was thinking like, I'm on my way work. I need to make the things work. And then I was thinking, hey, Miro, you were just lying here on the ground, like in unconscious state, and now you actually we are talking about health. And I was really on my way in the emergency car to hospital, thinking about what truly matter. And there was actually a very nice breeze and wake up call to take it a little bit in a different way and yeah, make things which really matter and little reset the
Hmm.
way I was operating recently. So to your question, I really connected back myself with wow, nurturing more relationships around and honoring also my limits. And yeah, if there is a rest needed, then doing it maybe a little earlier than when the life actually brings you to this situation where you really need actually to slow
Hmm.
down because there is no more or no other option.
I mean, we're diving straight into it, but I think, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a few of the parents that I work with, and this was actually what we ended up talking about. They were really stressed because their kids had recently stopped doing well in school, and they, were doing debaucherous activities in their side, after school, and they were really worried, and they were kind of just expressing to me how worried they were for their kids. And it just reminded me of kind of my own parents' worry when I was young and all the mistakes that had happened at that period of my life. And they were so like, oh my God, your whole life is going to end. I think even what I'm hearing you say is that when we're able to take a step back and realize that all of the things that happen in any particular period of our life is just one phase in a much larger kind of narrative that happens, you can kind of take yourself a little bit back without being too lost in any moment or phase of your life. And you can actually like reflect and be a little bit more cautious, not cautious, but a little bit more aware and intentional about what it is you're doing because you're not lost in the sauce. And I think I'm really
Mm,
excited to kind of get into some of these topics today. So you talk a little bit about, taking a break, reflecting, and being a little bit caring about what matters. I think this is going to be an interesting theme to keep coming back to in this conversation. I want to talk a little bit about Kaleido. Do you feel like
mhm.
the conference kind of helped you focus on what mattered?
Yeah, I mean, Kaleido is really something which I truly honor, and only to be part of the Kaleido for a few days, diving in the fields where you're meeting people who you would normally not have met, feels so refreshing because you can kind of have the opportunity to look through the window of other human. You see fully different things because if you have your own window, you're keeping seeing, the things you usually like seeing in your day, you're keeping rolling in your patterns. You're waking up. I go to fitness, drinking my matcha, then keeping rolling through the day. And suddenly there is someone who is passionate about whales. And then you're having, like, from your point of view, conversation with someone who is truly passionate about whales. And you can get so much enrichment from it. So, to your question, if I actually see in this Kaleido retreat value, or I can connect myself better with what truly matters in my life, oh gosh, for sure. And I really love to be inspired by humans with different passions and perceptions. And at the end, I was leaving Kaleido and I felt also like scientist, it was like,
Mm,
did you feel right now this climate change, design thinking, whales, or whatever we were talking about, it feels like, wow, now I feel really in this water really deep. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I mean, even as you were kind of sharing there, I'm excited to understand your window better and understand kind of who you are. And we spoke briefly at the conference, but there was something, and you'd mentioned earlier too, just I think something about in the few conversations that we did have, there was something quite magical in those moments. And it was really beautiful to get to know you and share those moments.
Mm,
So you told me you grew up in Czechia. So where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? What is Czechia like? I mean, I've actually, you're my first
mm.
guest from that country, so I'm really excited.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very honored that I can be the first one representing my country here. And how is Czechia? I feel like Czechia is a very beautiful country where, of course, there was some historical patterns or historical events which shaped also the way how people in Czechia are thinking, or how actually the culture has been shaped. And still, I'm really feeling such a privilege or such an honor or such a blessing that I could have grown up in a safe country where everything you needed, you have available. You just drink water from tap and you even don't have a thought if that's safe, yes or no, because the answer is like default yes. And yeah, I mean, it's really nice to growing up in the system which is providing you also education, which is for free. You have opportunities, you have options, and yeah. So to your question, I feel like very blessed and that I could have grown up in Czechia and so many beautiful people who were like accompanying my way there and shaping who I am today. And still, I'm 10 years already here in Switzerland. So I would say that the majority of my productive life, I've been living here in Zurich and still having these seeds being planted in Czechia, which allowed me to be who I am today.
Hmm. If there is one kind of cultural nugget about, it's hard because there's so many, but one that maybe a lot of people don't know about and you think is very important and integral to Czechian culture, what would it be?
Wow, that's a kind of tricky question. Let me think about this one. I think there is actually one particular thing, and I think what we learned like from the past to always find solution. Like there was a particular moment in the past where we were kind of detaching ourselves from the system which we were currently living in, and the people needed to find a way actually how to surf through the gray zones. So if there is anything particular which make Czech people special, in my point of view, they always find a way and surf through the gray zones with a smile on the cheeks.
Mm. I mean, I think one of the things that Kaleido taught me, and I think anytime I experience a situation that was like that, which is so diverse, not only from where people come from, but in what they study, how old they are, in every possible aspect of diversity, I feel like we were able to kind of put together a group that was like that. And
Mm,
it is a common experience for a lot of people who live in Europe because you're constantly interacting with Germans and French and people from Georgia and people from, all over
mm,
the kind of landmass. And it's not something that happens so often in the US. I think you often meet other Americans or maybe you'll meet a few Canadians here and there. Um, but how do you feel like diversity in general has played a role in your life, in living in different countries and in all the ways that you've experienced diversity? How do you feel like it's impacted your own kind of window that you see the world through?
mm. I love the word diversity, which is bringing new perspectives. You can see different new angles from new ways. And Zurich, I think, is like really great example for diversity or cultural differences. Yesterday, I was having a dinner with a friend of mine in beautiful Japanese restaurant. And we were actually like thinking about how exciting is that people from different countries are finding home here in Zurich and bringing this authentic experience. And we are not talking only about dining. It's just like you go on a market and there are humans from, for example, Colombia selling their traditional goods, which feels so interesting because I feel it's like in life. You can go around and yeah, the first of all, you never know what you taste. And on the other hand, you can choose like what are you going to taste from this buffet of the life.
Perspective, yeah. I mean, I think it's something I've been thinking a lot about in terms of my education, where I feel like it fell short.
Mm,
What are the ways that I feel like it could have been better? And I 100% think
mm,
perspective is one of those. I think the amount of different perspectives that I was actually exposed to were so little that I didn't
mm,
actually understand how unique each person's experience of this world is. So I'm curious about your own experience in Czechia and then coming um to Zurich. What was your schooling like in Czechia? Did you feel connected to your education? I mean, because I don't have too much context of what education is like there. So if you
mm,
could maybe give us some
mm.
context, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I was really lucky with my teacher in the school because I grew up in small town and I was attending local school. And at one point, the teacher, she came over and said like to my parents, "Hey, he's really bored here. I think we have to find different school for this human." And I really didn't have an idea. And my parents, they were like challenged by, do we really want to send like our son who is like 9 years old right now to another city, bigger city? On his own alone to the better school. And I'm so lucky that they said yes, actually, because I was able to go to another school, which I needed actually to make examination for. So I was coming into the third grade and I needed to really to make some application. So I see if they would want to take me on board or not. And another blessing was here because I was successful and I started actually my journey on another school, which was really good. For me, this all experience being accompanied with my peers who were really fast thinkers, and I was really able to be in a pool with people who had not only desires but dreams, were shaped by their parents, supported on the way to achieve something sustainable, and not only going to the school, but really like having the focus of yeah, I would say like in a different way to have this focus not only on the grades, but having this focus of what kind of wisdom I'm taking on board. That we are not learning for grades, but that we are learning to achieve some fundamental tools for your life you can be equipped by. And that was very, very handy for me and my further steps. As I was also continuing to my further studies later on, I did my bachelor and my master in Prague, but I was already at the time. when I was living in Zurich. So it wasn't really easy to travel to Czechia to finish my studies, but still, I'm very happy I did it because, again, it's giving new perspectives. I met so many amazing people during my studies I'm remaining in the contact with, and I'm super happy for it. And the education in this education system in Czechia was really shaped one particular human from the past who was called Jan Amos Komensky, and he did actually a lot in the term of building up the educational system which we're having. And one of the quote from him was, "The best is when you learn by playing, and when you actually not only like seeing someone showing you something, but that you can really like be involved in the learning process, and maybe even the best like to start teaching it."
Mm. Learning through playing. You said something earlier, which I think is so profound and so interesting. You said not only desires, but also dreams. I don't know if you just like threw that out there, but I think that's actually such a beautiful way to separate this like form of education where a student is just built up with desires. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. But
Mm,
there is something unique about a dream, which is very different than a
mm,
desire. It's not dreams sometimes are things that you will never get, it feels like. Sometimes, and I'm curious, I want to hear your distinction between those two. But for me, a dream is something that is so far away that the beauty of the
mm,
dream itself is simply just aspiring towards it. Like, I know as a single person, I'm never going to make the changes that I want in education. But I have these lofty dreams of maybe a world where education looks completely different. And that dream in itself makes life living a lot of the time. Like, whether it happens or not, which is very different than a desire. I don't think I can point to any desire I have that makes waking up every morning worth it, but dreams sometimes do. What do you feel like is the difference for you
mm.
between a dream and a desire?
Oh, when I hear you to talk about desire and dreams, it feels so alive, and I fully agree. I feel like the dreams that are the daily fuel for your day, waking up and opening your eyes and already knowing like there is something bigger than I am. There is a dream how I can contribute with my unique essence, not only to the world around, but include yourself in it. And the dream can be actually whatever, and that makes it a little bit fascinating. You know, dream can be also like sit for 1 hour in the middle of the Amazon rainforest and just be, and it can be dream. And sometimes the dream can be also like just sit and plan your vacation, which you never make. This is
Mm,
also like the dreams can be like so random and at the end so connected to the essence of every particular single human being. And it's so nice that we are having so many dreams around. And at the end, just this openness that they're all possible makes me feel like, wow, like, yes, like all dreams at the end can be in some way doable in the right time with the right
mm,
human around you, with the right setting of your mind, or yeah.
mm. Your dreams are possible, and I think that's an environment and a conference like Kaleido. And I feel like for any listeners who are confused, there will be a few episodes before this that will go fully in depth in what Kaleido was, what the conference was like, and so it gives a little bit of a context into what we're talking about. But I think Kaleido, in so many ways, is a phenomenal way to dream because you end up getting connected with a lot of people who do things so differently from you. So, and that's something I'm really curious to hear your story about because you work in the restaurant industry, and that is a
Mm.
world on its own. I think it's always fascinating to me when you run into doctors and you run into lawyers and you run into, I mean, each kind of bubble is its own universe, and you could spend your whole life just learning about it, understanding it. And restaurants and the whole food industry, which is makes up about probably 80% of my meals, is something that is truly integral to so many people's lives. And so, how did you find yourself? What was your path to getting into the whole industry? And was that something that you were envisioning when you were younger?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the things are just falling into the pieces on their own, and you continue walking, and then you, through your openness, remain very surprised how the things actually were when we're talking again about the dreams are coming together. And then once you have all the pieces which are being collected and you see them all together, then at one point it makes all sense. And it was also like kind of my story. How did I get to this industry? Because when I was making this decision, do I want to go this direction? I wasn't like sitting at home and thinking of, yeah, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. But it felt like, all right, let's go this way. I love humans. I can imagine that it can be fun. But when I was 15, about to make this decision, you really don't know yourself that well. So you can make this decision. Oh, yeah, I want to be lawyer. Yes, I want to be policeman. Yes, I want to be supply chain manager in wherever. You know? So sometimes it feels you just keep going in some direction and the life is shaping you to remain on the track. And for you, when you were talking about the restaurants, for me, it's like space. I'm always saying, and also to people in the team, that we are creating the space for the other humans who can meet together, for the people who can actually celebrate their life moments. And we can be part of it and contribute in the way of creating this space with not only our knowledge, but also with this awareness that we are creating the space. And this is kind
Hmm.
of same also in the breath work, or also when you meet your friend and you're one-on-one sharing about deep stories from your life. At the end, I believe that it's everything about space holding and space creating. And this is what we try to make also in Artisan and
Hmm.
Freistuben, to create a space where people can meet, celebrate their life moments, and we can be part of it.
Hmm. On space creation. And so would you say that if you were to summarize a lot of what you do as general manager of these spaces is space creation in some ways?
I would say very generally, yes. I mean, the work I'm doing can be also very diverse. I'm happy we're landing again with the word diversity. It, I feel like space like a restaurant has a lot of needs, or so you really need to cover many different departments, especially when the restaurants are smaller ones. The world teams we are having, it's around 30, 35 people. We are holding the space for people who are coming for brunches. It's around 200 guests on the maximum, for the dinner around 100. So this size of restaurant has specific needs, and the work I'm doing here is quite diverse. And still, I'm trying to be also in the operations, to remain in the touch with my team and also with the guests. And at the end, it's also something which I truly love, to getting in the contact with strangers and meeting as a strangers, and in the ideal way, leaving as a friends, or having fun and taking it like easy and still delivering high quality services.
Hmm. I really like what this comparison of a restaurant, not just as a place where people go get food, but kind of as a space where when you and I really anyone who knows me well knows how much of every day I probably spend in random coffee shops around the world. And so I really pick up on the energy. I live out of coffee shops, so I really pick up the energy of each space. And it's fascinating how based on the decor, what type of food they're serving, how loud is the music, how is the seating, what type of place are you sitting, what is the lighting
Mm,
like?
mm,
I mean, the list is endless, but the entire space completely influences the type of work you're able to do, how creative you feel, how good are your conversations with your clients or your students or whatever. The space, when I feel like when the focus is on the space rather than just like, okay, we're going to just focus on the food. The food is just one aspect of the space. And I really would like to
mm,
hear more about
mm.
this kind of idea of thinking about restaurants or any of the places that you take as a space. Do you feel like most people in the restaurant industry feel that way about their stores or?
Oh, I would wish it that we really can take these spaces as a idea that this is a crossroad where humans are meeting themselves. And it can be, like different life occasions. It can be birthday, it can be first date, it can be celebration that you just finished your studies. And that's why I feel like so fascinated about this idea that this is really like the space where people are coming in and want to have right now their moment after maybe working really hard and just diving in and feeling not only welcome, but leaving a bit enriched like from this space. So to your question, if I'm thinking that it's like everywhere like this perceive, I don't think so. And I can maybe also understand why is that. This space can be also very demanding on energy, working long hours. And I know that the cognitive capacity sometimes can be also reached, especially when you're working hard and working a lot. And some businesses are maybe not even having it in the standards. I can remember when I used to work for a bigger chain in hospitality, I had my brand standard audit, and I really needed to go through points of chief so we can still be successful with possible check or with possible brand standard audit. And what I was always saying, even though we not accomplish 100% of the points, I just would wish that every one of us can be authentic, that every one of us can be human, and that we are not repeating the phrases which we need to repeat in regard to get the points on
Mm,
board.
mm,
So my wish will be like bringing this experience more human. We're not perceiving the people who are coming in as a piece of meat with two legs, two arms, having the food and going, but that we really can nourish and maintain this connection, that we can also hold each other in this space and provide this service, which is coming again from the quality and authentic relating.
mm. For context, the way that I know that things that you're saying right now are not simply words, I wrote this down in my notes as well, is that I think you give some of the most amazing hugs that I've ever seen a person give. And I think a hug can speak so much about a person's ability to be present, their ability to like actually exist within their body. I mean, I think how someone gives a hug actually says so much about them as a person. And I feel that there is a certain level of presence. I mean, even when I send you a message, the fact that you'll respond in a voice note and you'll actually take your time and the fact that you're that space. Oh, I want to touch a little bit more on the space. Space is not only built within a building. It can be setting the grounds before you have a conversation with a friend. It could be how the inside of your car feels. I mean, there are so many spaces that we actually embody in a day-to-day basis
Mm.
that we could look at all of those things as a space that we're embodying, we're navigating, or other people are navigating. What is a few tips that you would have on how someone can set up their space so that it invites, I guess, more openness and more joy from those who walk through it?
First of all, thank you very much, Gautam, for this compliment, and very, very happy you enjoy my hugs. Thank you for saying that. It just reminds me, my friend Yelena, she's on one teacher training right now, and she sent me a message yesterday. I was saying, Miro, and at the end of our practice, we were lying on our side, and I was like asking all participants, and now offer yourself hug. And I remember your hugs, and I was like, oh my God, it's the sweetest person. Like, share it.
That's
Yeah,
sweet.
so I would really agree that in the hugs you can really share presence, and yeah, I really enjoy to remain in this physical presence with someone, especially when you're hugging like heart to heart, and you can really feel the human. I really
Mm,
enjoy it. And also honoring the space of the humans around because not maybe everyone is enjoying, the way of being hugged tight. So I think it's more about, and I'm jumping to the first step, like being aware about the needs of humans around you, that maybe there is someone who wish today to be hugged gently or maybe like handled gently. Maybe the person right now is on the edge with a capacity, and right now the empathetic approach can be like, how can I be in this space with this human so the human can feel like, oh, my nervous system is relaxing right now, feel very, very good in the presence of the other human. So I feel the first tip will be this awareness about how can I contribute in the space of the other human and still honor my boundaries. Yeah, and the another one will be maybe a little similar. When I was having chat recently with someone sharing really vulnerable topics, just like again, I feel it's all circling around the needs. Like, hey, do you want me to just be present and hear you? Or do you want me to give you a question? Or do you want me to hear my opinion right now? I feel like sometimes we are operating from being reactive and not really being sensitive about what actually this person really needs. And I don't know. And if I don't know, then I can ask, you know? I remember when I was sharing my vulnerable sharing with some close friends, I just didn't feel like I needed to receive advice. I just wanted to be received, you know, I just wanted to hear, yeah, like, yeah, Miro, that's really bummer. Ah, yeah, it's really that, you know. So I feel like to also know how to check in with the other person, like, hey, how can I contribute in this space? What do you need right now? What can I do? I'm here. Yeah. And in this field also
Mm,
like honor your own limits, that maybe you just don't have the resources right now to offer what is human is requesting. And this is also perfectly fine. Yeah.
mm,
And yeah, you were asking for three, and it feels like magical number. Three tips. And I feel generally like being open and giving question. It's a very beautiful way how to maintain and build the bridges between the human. I really enjoy deep conversations and really trying to remain in this presence in the way of right now. I want to feel in what is the question you really maybe did not expect to receive, but can maybe bring you some new perspective. What kind of question can you
mm,
receive right now, which brings like this fresh breeze, like the one in the spring,
mm,
you know, like,
mm. Like a fresh spring. Yeah, it's a beautiful. It makes me feel like it's been raining so much right now, and I'm like, oh, that sounds so nice. I want some sunlight so badly. It's been raining nonstop, and it's been if it's not rainy, it's gloomy. It's been tough. But I want to talk a little bit about what you said right there, which is it seemed a lot of focus on being aware of the needs of those around you. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I'm
mm,
realizing how unaware I am of my own needs. And it is only when it's far too late and I'm really upset or angry
mm,
where I'm like, I don't think I'm taking care of myself properly. I was telling you earlier today, but I actually had one of those days today where I did not take care of myself at all. And I realized that far too late into the day that I was like, did I even eat today? Like, what am I even
mm,
doing? I was in one of those states where I just did not take care of myself. And so before, I guess my question is, because I'm curious about this for myself, before being aware of others' needs, I feel like first you have to also be aware of your own needs. What are some of the
mm,
techniques that you have built over your lifetime to first like pay attention to yourself? What do you need in any given moment?
mm. Oh, I really love that you're coming with this topic. I really agree to feel being reconnected with yourself and thinking about like what is the starting point from which I'm actually trying to connect with the other human. It's so crucial and it's so essential. This is also bring the quality at the end. Like what kind of quality of the connection can I actually maintain and how can I make this connection sustainable for the future? And one of my technique, which is recently working really good, especially in the morning, like waking up and activate myself, running in the fitness, making my meditation,
Mm,
and then making my own breathwork practice, which really helps me to tune in the day and then close the day consciously again. When I'm actually chanting, because I love chants and I love singing, to close my day with 108 Gayatri mantra chant. And that really helps me to digest the day, really helps me to be present and yeah, be more mindful about how do I start and close the days, which brings me these resources for generally not only the day which just happened, but even new insights and ideas for upcoming days.
mm. That's something that's been very evident to me recently. Paying like I've realized how important it is to pay attention to how I end the day. Not only thinking about how I start the day, but realizing how I end the day is in a lot of ways how the next day starts. The end literally just carries over to the
Mm,
start of the next day. And so if you're not focused on the way it ends, you actually are also not paying attention to how it starts. They both are so deeply interconnected. I've been realizing how if I'm not intentional about how I go to sleep, when I wake up unintentional as well about how I go into the day. And so
Mm,
it seems like what life is asking from me is to then like have this level of intentionality throughout the day. It has to be something that has to seep through your every action. It can't just be like, okay, I'm going to be intentional for 3 hours and then back to unintentional behavior for the rest of the day. Because then I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I am really just reflecting how my day was today, which was just I feel like I haven't been this unintentional in a long time. And so it's something and I'm really glad we're able to talk about it now. So you talk about breath work, and I'm really excited to get into this now. In one
mm,
of your in the workshop that you had held, one of the friends that I made at the conference actually had told me that she ended up, bursting into tears. It was really intense.
mm.
It was a very so one for people who may not be aware of breathwork, I actually don't know too much about it myself. What exactly is breathwork?
Yeah, I really fell in love with breathwork, and it was also like one reason I started with this. And I would even say that breathwork found me. That I visited before I start actually teaching breathwork with many, many, many classes as a participant. 2015, I did my first breathwork session, and I didn't know that's breathwork. I was just on one spiritual conference in Czechia and seeing someone is offering one session, and I was like in the mood of exploration, so I went there, and then I was like stunned. It was like, what is just happening? Like I felt like all my body was like in a vibration, like I felt like this tingling everywhere in my body, and I was so reconnected with myself, and I still didn't know that it was actually breath work. When I started to do the group sessions on my own as a participant, it really allowed me to go and explore more my inner landscapes. And if I will be, because there was also a funny story when my parents were asking, like, and what is actually the breath work you're doing? We really don't know. And I just realized, like, how you can create by doing some things really knowledge gap. And I was like, how should I say what is breath work? Like, like to your parents. And even the word is, like not Czech. So the word is also English. So how should I talk about breath work, which is even not having like a name in Czech language? So
Hmm, that's
so it was
funny.
quite very funny. But I would say like what is breathwork generally after hearing like how was my path to get on the board with breathwork and maybe to talk something to it before we continue to what is breathwork. I was so passionate about the breathwork because I was really seeing like how it's having positive influence of my life and helping me to hold the direction, focus, healing, transformation of all what I needed to transform from my past. Then I decided to make a breathwork teacher training in Greece with school Sama Karuna from Thailand. It was 1 month and it was so intense. We were waking up every day like at 6 o'clock, starting with active meditation for 1 hour and having breathwork every day. And it was like multi-modality training. So we did like holotropic breathing and rebirthing and tetra breath work and shamanic breath work. And every day we were doing breath work. And after that, I went to Peru when I did another breathwork teacher training with Wolf Kinsman, which was very, very beautiful, like to connect myself with the indigenous tradition and really explore a bit the ancient practices, which I can bring from Peru over here and put it not only in my ceremonies or in the way how I'm actually offering breathwork, but also like enrich my presence, my daily routine with all those techniques, which is working quite good. Yeah, and then Dan Brilla is also like very amazing facilitator right now, and I did online training with him, which is again like collecting the puzzles and shaping your own way, how actually you feel offering, and again create a space for participants or humans who are coming to visit the breathwork sessions.
Hmm. So
And
yeah,
maybe you
so
were
what is so
asking.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what is the
So what
breathwork?
is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, when we talk about breathwork, I get really passionate. The
Yeah, that's
excitement
lovely.
and
No, that's
the,
great.
and the excitement is simply here. Yeah, so I would say like the basic breathwork, how does it work? Everything when we consciously working with the breath can be called breathwork. Right now, what is becoming very popular, we have many breathwork styles, which is based on conscious connected breathing, usually on hyperventilation, where we can really go intentionally for some particular moment in some state of breath and hold it. And I'll maybe explain a bit later. But what I try to say right now that every moment when we are consciously working with the breath, we can call it breath work. And it actually came out from the ancient tradition of pranayama from India. And then it got a little adjusted and reshaped. And now we have, for example, the Wim Hof style, which became really popular, and many people are actually getting in touch with this technique also in cold plunges or in different ways how to actually explore the topic of breathing. Stanislav Grof with holotropic breathing, when we also wanted to go deeper in triggering some past events from the life which we want to integrate. So once again, breath work, which I feel like sharing right now about, is the breath work, which is based on conscious connected breathing, where we consciously bringing more oxygen in the body. And then we are actually switching between parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and vice versa when we consciously want to trigger some reaction from the body. Where we actually want to be, or which is really like the profound state where we activating the right one, where the healing or activating your own healing powers, but also digestion or maybe sleep is actually happening. And yeah, I feel it's really powerful when you really can go consciously in these breathing patterns with a conscious connected breathing, where we have literally no gaps between inhale and exhale into your deep exploration and healing.
Hmm.
Would you say, was it's more clear right now to hear what is the breath work, or do you want me to
Yeah.
share maybe a bit
No, I
more
mean,
about it?
I was gonna ask you a question, maybe because it sounds similar to meditation. Is there a way to distinguish between what meditation is versus breath work?
Yeah, so I would not say that I'm really like a meditation expert, even though there is in my practice a lot of meditation, and I love meditation. And in the meditation, you can also connect yourself with the breath. As I was actually attending how is it called? Anapanata meditation. It was my first time I was visiting it, when you're really consciously aware about your breath, 1 hour sitting and really be just aware about your breathe in and breathe out, breathe in and breathe out in a very natural way. So I would say you can combine it for sure. It's bringing, I feel, a lot of enrichment to your practice. So I would say meditation, there can be breathing patterns which can help you to meditate better. But what I recently discovered is actually mantra chanting. I actually love mantra and singing, and I wasn't actually aware that a mantra chanting can be actually prayer in which actually you are having breath work. Because if you
Hmm.
have your chant for some time and then you need to breathe in and then you continue again, maybe having this breath retention because you need to make your chant. So that was for me really fascinating to actually connect that, okay, I can have a mantra chanting, maybe also mantra itself as a focus object for meditation, but also for breath work. And that was for me fascinating connection between the practices.
Hmm. I mean, okay, so it's interesting. I've done a little bit of meditation, so I feel like some of the things that you're saying have a little bit more context to me. But it's especially in the States. I mean, I feel like this awareness to breath itself, which seems like it seems like it should be this universal human thing. It's the one thing your body naturally does without you having to pay attention. So to actually like pay a little bit attention to it seems kind of like it would make sense. But in a lot of cultures, there is no practice of like pay attention to your breath. I mean, that's something that is now, some psychologists are like, well, why don't you try paying attention to your breath? I mean, it's now, I feel like catching slow traction in the States. But I really want to connect this to education in that how do you think some of the things that you're learning can be perhaps like integrated
Mm.
into the schooling system? And do you feel like it would be beneficial?
Oh, I love this question. always when I actually hear that someone is working in the field of education, it feels like those humans are investing in our futures. And that feels really fascinating. And to your question, how I think actually breath or work with the breath can be beneficial for this field, I think there are so many possibilities. And actually, as I see this tool as a really fast regulation of your nervous system or maybe your emotional regulation, that can be super cool also when you're exposed with stress generally. And if you adapt maybe only slow and gentle breathing in and breathing out, and you're keeping breathing slow and deep, you can already feel the impact. You can feel the impact only by 3 or 4 repetitions of having consciously breathing in and breathing out, slow, deep, and gentle. And I feel this we can do also in the schools, like having a short breaks to reconnect yourself with yourself. Offer yourself a space where you can actually take a break in the way so you don't feel like a racehorse between examinations.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's interested, in the previous season, I actually interviewed this English teacher who incorporated a meditation practice inside of his classroom, and it worked
Mm,
phenomenally well with a lot of his students. And we talked a little bit about what that was like. What are some of the challenges in especially a lot of the schools where that's not necessarily accepted, or there's some kind of obstacles often presented by the school district itself for allowing something like that to happen. So he shares a lot about his name was John Krieger. So if anyone who's listening is
mm,
interested in that conversation about meditation in schools, I thought that was a phenomenal conversation. So I mean, I
mm,
100% agree with you. I mean, even as you were talking, I tried that for a few breaths there, and immediately, I mean, I felt a sense of presence, and I felt but here, the thing I think is that a lot of meditation and breath work and these things, they've been co-opted by just pseudo people who like have done it once and watched a YouTube video and then feel like now
mm,
they've become an expert and then start talking about it. And I think that ends up that's what happens when something that's like a cultural practice starts getting spread across the world. People take what they want from it, what they don't want, because not everyone is trained by like someone who's really knows the depths of something like that. And so it
mhm,
changes in its meaning because it's often co-opted by people who don't really know what they're talking about. So you have things like beer yoga that exist where people drink beer and then do yoga, and as if that's really yoga rather than just stretching, or it's so fascinating how so many things like that are just co-opted by this capitalist machine of like, okay, people would want this and therefore let's bring this around. My question for you is, often what ends up happening is it seems that things like breath work and meditation are these like deep practices that have been practiced by certain cultures for thousands of years. And as of recent global efforts, a lot of these things have been passed throughout the entire world. But one thing that ends up happening is that it gets co-opted by different systems that end up just taking parts that they want from it. And they're like, okay, this sounds good. This will sell well. Let's just take these parts. And over time, it slowly changes into something that was not what it originally was at all, which is how you end up with things like beer yoga, where people do beer and then
mm,
stretch and then call it yoga. If you feel like someone wants to authentically learn about breath work, but can't go join, some center somewhere in Peru or wherever in the world, what are some ways you feel like people can start learning about these things from their home?
mm. Yeah, when I hear you to sharing about different modalities which are just arising from different needs and desires, it reminds me actually how we talk about different topics from the past. As an example, how we translating Rumi, as a and his poems, and actually the latest researches or the latest knowings about this actually just found out that what do we have from the Rumi that he actually have never said it. That we have kind of silent pose which just happen between the past and the present. And still, when I read his poems or his poems, it feels like enriching. And I feel like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. I can incorporate it in my life and it can have some benefits. So I feel even though sometimes we are keeping shaping the teachings from the past and bringing it in today life, it can still be beneficial. And the way like everyone is bringing some own learnings or maybe their own approaches or maybe how do they see it. And still, I feel there is some healthy core inside which we need to maintain or have, which has to remain. So we still have it in the way of we can still interpret it as a consistent or that's it something which still has a ground and we can also like take it on board and it's still like consistent. It's like wall. Yeah, and to your question, what do I think right now is the best way to teach about breath work? I feel you don't really need much. Like one tool you need is your breath, and you have it everywhere with you. So even right now, you hear me talking, and you will just take conscious breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. And then once again, breathe in and breathe out. You're already making breath work. So all what you need, you have already. And now it's all about consistency and feeling about, is it beneficial for me in my life? Is it something right now I can take on board and feel this is bringing me some enrichment or this is bringing me something I want to keep and maintain in my life? This is the question. And starting to create a habit, being consistent, having this discipline, remain at least 20 days doing it in the small way. Like I will do 3 breaths a day, like every day 3 breaths, and just like develop this healthy habit and continue doing that. And then one day it will just be part of my day. Ooh, and without breathwork, maybe I would not be able to imagine my day anymore because I feel it's bringing a value in it. So I feel we have the breath, then we need consistency. And once we feeling it's bringing the value and something we want to keep, it will just happen it will just happen and it will be part of our day.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying, one, I wanted to say that point that you just made right there was really beautiful and very open-minded. And I think it's a perspective that I need to take more into consideration. I feel like I've heard far too many people kind of say the point of like, okay, well, things that are from a different culture, things that are from the past has to be kept exactly the way it is. And if it changes, then it's terrible and it's been co-opted for the wrong reasons. But I think the perspective that you took is actually a very open-minded and understanding one, which is that even if you have something like beer yoga, which in its essence goes against the principles of yoga, it would still, if someone is still gaining some sort of whatever they would call benefit from it, then there's benefit in it. Like, does it really matter
Mm.
that it's changed in its essence and principle? I think that's a really good point and one that is very open-minded. I like that. But I guess like to wrap up this conversation because there's so much more that we really need to talk about. But what would you say is like the way in which you connect the work that you do with in your breath work to your work in the restaurants? How do you kind of connect those two worlds together?
I like this question. Let me think about my answer because I feel like they can both coexist together. That even there are like touching points or overlaps, I don't feel like they need to cover exactly each other because again, we are talking about diversity and many different fields, and it can be also in education, like many different fields which you coming from can actually nourish the life you are experiencing right now. So for breathwork, I really try to create ceremonial space when we also drink cacao together. And through this conscious connected breathing, when you're breathing in the diaphragma, really go in the journey. inside, to explore your inner landscapes and allow yourself to feel all emotions, all sensations, and really try to actually remove the obstacles from the past where you didn't allow yourself to experience some difficult experiences or moments, and really create a
Mm,
space where you can integrate it. I'm usually consciously not using emotional release because I think it's more about emotional integration from the past moments where we really fell in the coping strategy, in the coping mechanism. And right now it's creating burden in our lives. And we really cannot experience our life fully. So this ceremonial space of the breathwork, enhanced with the cacao, is for me like creating the space where we can dive into it, and in the safe environment, we can really dive on the journey of this exploration. And you never know where the wisdom of the breath or this moment is going to take you. So this is like this one bubble about the breath work. And on the other side, we're also talking about the restaurants. And at the end, you still work with humans who have their own troubles, issues, maybe emotions, which can be from the spectrum 1 to 100, very random. You never know who is experiencing what, and still the mission is clear. You just create a space for whoever shows up. But it's not only guests, because we try to maintain the space for the team as well. So we
mm,
had a many situations where someone from the team needed to be held because we are at the end all humans with our insecurities, with our needs. And sometimes what we usually do after some Saturday, Sunday brunch, that we make a sharing circle when we allow ourselves actually to be seen, to be heard, and to integrate the experience after stressful shift, where we can also talk about insecurities. When I sometimes hear like, wow, and I felt really I'm doing bad job, and only to ask in the team, like, all right, everyone, who felt in the life sometimes that you're not doing great job? And everyone just like, coming with a hand up. And it's also bringing like kind of, you can be received in this moment and feel that your experience is not weird, that you're not weird, and that there are like fellow humans also experiencing insecurities. So I feel like you can bring from both spaces, breathwork or restaurants, some principles, and I really would love to highlight the word principles because generally in the education, I believe that the principles it's something which is actually bringing us to integrate all the wisdom or the knowledge which we are having in the life. Because without
mm,
principles, we're just copy pasting the things we heard and we are not having context.
mm,
So this is how my life in those two bubbles can coexist together, not necessarily needing to be overlapped, but enriching actually and fueling each other. And at the end, also perceiving that I can also take a lot from it, from my own bubble, when I can take in my own space, because you were also mentioning the limits, like your own limits, and also the ability to take care for yourself first. In the leadership trainings, which I'm usually holding, there is like one principle which I'm trying to teach: find a way how to care for yourself. What does it mean? And how to take it in your daily life.
mm. I'm writing all these notes down. I mean, I think, thank you so much. I really liked the journey of this conversation, starting from what happened this last weekend, how that led into this conversation of presence. And then that eventually led on to us talking about your restaurant business and creating spaces and how do we actually tend to the needs of others. And that connects us into your work with breath work, finding yourself, finding your own breath, healing through a lot of the things that you do through this, finding presence, and then connecting it all back together. I thought this was a really cool journey. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
Mm. Thank you once again for invitation. Oh, I feel so excited, and I really agree. It was a beautiful journey, and I really love the questions you're giving because they are very actually bring me into thinking and really bringing the depth.
Yeah, that's sweet. But yeah, thank you. And that brings us to the end of our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you again for listening and making this process so much more enjoyable. If you haven't had the chance to already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts to get the latest updates on new episodes. If you've been learning useful information here, feel free to leave a review as well. A little bit goes a long way in spreading this podcast. and have a wonderful day. And as per usual, stay re-educated.